I'm gonna start this video from the end with a summary because I want to say right away that this guitar is a joke on fans of the brand and guitar consumers in general. The Indonesian-made Fender Standard is a guitar on par with instruments for 200 bucks, but to have the Fender logo, you have to pay 3 times as much for it. Buckle up, because today there will be no soft play. Let's get started! Recently I promised you that for 500 likes I would buy this guitar and review it. What's very important, this is not a sponsored test and my activity is maintained by viewer donations and affiliate programs. Remember that by buying anything at Thomann, you can click on my ref link and support my work without spending any extra cents. We'll start with the pros. It shouldn't surprise anyone, but after the last Player 2 review, I have to mention that the Fender Standard is relatively playable out of the box. Although the string action leaves a lot to be desired, we can't complain about the setup because it varies even in high-end guitars. After a short work with the truss rod and the springs holding the bridge, I managed to tune the guitar and play it for a while. Another positive surprise is the fretwork. The frets are not polished aesthetically, but nothing protrudes and their surface is not rough. The guitar plays quite pleasantly and is better work than in the previously tested Fender Player 2. Though they messed up the painting because the fretboard itself has a flaw and the dots were also cut off and the ends of the frets have 2 colors, silver and red. These are of course details, but well, the Fender logo should oblige to at least basic aesthetic quality control. In fact, cheap guitars are made with more care. The guitar specs are disgustingly cheap. Poplar body, Laurel fretboard, which is what we have in the cheapest guitars from $200 to $300. The wood is completely deaf, the guitar doesn't ring like a real Strat even with big tremolo block and doesn't give any pleasure from playing. The pickups are also a huge disappointment. They sound like they were under a blanket and had the tone knob turned down but at least 30% from the factory. I was going to compare the Fender with some better Strat, but I'll start by showing a Chinese donor for $150. This is the guitar, very cheap, and you can also tell that the neck finish is quite comparable. Very raw, I don't like it. Just to be strict, I'm not saying that these guitars play the same, but both are crappy Stratocasters. The Fender is dull and totally lifeless and doesn't ring, while the donor is shrill. To calibrate this, I will play a similar phrase on a top shelf guitar, a custom-made Strat with Eric Johnson pickups. Do you hear the difference? Donner sounds more like a Strat than the Fender. That's absurd. For your information, all the comparison samples are recorded on exactly the same amplifier setting. It is a Marshall Plexi in the studio version. I had a weird impression while playing the Fender Standard. I was constantly, subconsciously grabbing the tone knob and trying to turn it. Unfortunately, it was always set to the max. Like I said before, it's a matter of taste, but I have the feeling that the neck was also finished as cheaply as possible. Taking this guitar in your hand, you feel like you're playing on a Yamaha Pacifica 012 or just that red Donner. Raw, slightly rough wood, the player too felt like a custom shop in comparison. There are also some design flaws. The saddle was cut in such a way that the strings are slightly blocked in it. It's not quite the level of the Fender Player 2 failure, but still, forget about using the tremolo bridge on a factory cut saddle. In addition, the string retainer was screwed in crookedly, distorts the geometry of the string and make it more difficult for the guitar to return to the correct tuning. In general, you can feel the cheapness from a mile away, and no one specifically looked at this guitar after it was made. The biggest disappointment is the mentioned deaf wood. I've modified many cheap and expensive guitars, and I assure you that even putting expensive pickups and new hardware here, the playing experience will be so-so. It's roughly between the Harley Benton ST20 and ST62 level. Here, for comparison, I have such a cheap guitar with replaced pickups. Even after investing in it, it is about $300 cheaper than the Fender. Listen. To sum up, I think Fender shot himself in the foot with the new Standard series. The sticker says Standard is set, and indeed they have set a new level of ripping off customers. If this guitar cost $300, I would turn a blind eye, but over $600 for an instrument from the Squier Affinity shelf is an absolute disgrace. As an alternative in this price, I will recommend you Squier Classic Vibe, which has in fact better specs and is cheaper, but also other lesser known brands like Larry Carton S7, Jet or FGN Boundary. You can also have fun modifying such a Benton's ST62. You don't have to spend all the money right away, and the end result will definitely be better than the Fender. You know, I don't want it to sound like I'm looking to your wallets and telling you what to buy. However, I want every viewer to be aware of what they are paying for. Here, $200 and $450 the logo. A real drama. Thanks for listening, for all the likes, subscription, guitars in hand, but not this. See you next time.